Hello. Today we're going to be talking about the different media server types that you can set up inside of your My Contact Center for Business or Mitel Customer Experience platforms. To start with, what exactly is a media server? So while the MiCCB does have the capability to run internal routing, be able to take some particular call or interaction and send it off to an agent, in order for that functionality to happen, the MiCCB needs to be connected to a media server that handles the particular type of interaction that is being served into the MiCCB. Within the platform, there are four primary media types that are supported. These are the voice media type, chat, email, and SMS or texting. Each of these different types of media have their own separate or a special media server that needs to be created and configured in order for that particular media type to be available to the MiCCB. We're going to take a bit of a dive into each of these four types in the coming sections. To start with, probably the most basic and straightforward one that will be created is what's called the voice media server. As I said previously, normally, if you call into a contact center, you will go into a queue, you will wait on hold, and then eventually that call will be answered by an agent. The waiting on hold until you're delivered to an agent and that portion of the routing, MiCCB can handle that without the need for a external server. However, in order for this call to actually make it into the MiCCB, you have to create what's called a voice media server. And generally speaking, the voice media server is going to be linked to a PBX of some kind. The most common examples would be something like a My Voice for Business or My Voice Connect PBX system. There are a few others that can be supported, but these are going to be your common go-tos. When it comes to the creation of a media server, pretty standard networking details are all that you will need. You simply need to create a name for the media server and then apply or add IP addresses where appropriate to allow for that connection to be established and set up. Once the voice media server is created and the connection is established, voice calls can be directed from your particular PBX into the MiCCB, which will then match the media server that you've created to that incoming connection. And at that point, the MiCCB's routing will take over and deliver the interaction to where it needs to go. In a sort of similar type of vein, another type of media server that we have is what's called a chat media server. And as I'm sure we have all experienced and seen, especially more recently, where we are interacting with a chat or a live chat agent, in order for that interaction to work, the MiCCB would also need to be connected to a chat server of some kind. One particular thing that is worth mentioning when it comes to the chat media server type is that there are two different ways that it can be accessed. And you can notice here in our example image that we have basically a URL that is accessible to the public, and then you have a internal URL that is accessible internally, meaning on the enterprise network. But once again, when it comes to adding in the functionality for chat, you need to have a media server in place for that. And then you simply associate those interactions to the particular agents who can handle them. Another type of media server that MiCCB supports is what's called the email media server. And the email media server, as you can probably guess based on the descriptions for the previous two, is how you enable the MiCCB to be able to handle email-based interactions. When it comes to email, it is a little more complicated to set up simply because with email in particular, you have to deal with not only the ability for the MiCCB to actually receive emails and route them as appropriate, but you also need to have the ability for the MiCCB to send out emails, whether these are manually type in emails, whether they are automatic responses, whatever the case may be. Email is slightly more complicated to set up because, unlike with chat and voice, where those connections are generally going to be kind of one direction, which is to say that they're going to be receiving incoming interactions for voice or chat. With email in particular, you have to make sure that when you set it up, that you're dealing not only with the ability for the email to come in, but also the ability for the email to go back out or for the response to go back out. And then the final type of media server that is supported by MiCCB is what's called the SMS media server. And this particular media server type is not one that you will use during kind of a live customer interaction. A lot of the time, the SMS media server is set up specifically for things like after call follow up, whether that's a opportunity for the customer or the client to provide feedback, whether it's for survey purposes. You could also potentially use the SMS functionality for things like, say, appointment reminders. So the SMS functionality that's included here isn't necessarily for customers or clients to be able to text into the business and receive a response in the same way as, like, say, an email or a chat, but it's more for kind of the after call or prior call work that can be done through text messaging. So when we talk about media servers within the MiCCB platform, we're basically talking about the different types of servers that manage the different types of media that the MiCCB supports. So you have the media server for voice, chat, email, and SMS. And each of these individual types of media can be or should be connected to a relevant server that can handle those particular types of media. And the media server configuration on MiCCB is how the platform becomes aware of these different types of media and how it can manage it. I'd like to thank everybody for joining and watching our video, and we will see you in the next one.